All right. Happy Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I do want to go ahead and jump right in because we do have a special guest. We're going to start things off with him. So first and foremost, let me just go ahead and show you that thumbnail so you can see what we are discussing tonight, ladies and gents. Lots to discuss. We do have one really good story tonight, so you guys will see that later on. Tonight, we are discussing the battle for the Strait of Hormuz. It appears that Iran and, of course, China, they're really showing up. Donald Trump and the U.S. government here. Larry Johnson is here to discuss that with us. We're also going to get into this ceasefire that was just announced for Lebanon. And, of course, this war powers resolution that was just voted on in Congress. So we'll get into all of that. I'm also going to discuss Erika Kirk. Oh boy. This event that she was supposed to be at with J.D. Vance. She did not appear there apparently because she said that she felt threatened and feared for her safety. Now new information has been released that apparently was not the case. Surprise, surprise. We'll get into all of that. We're also going to discuss, this is really good news. If you live in New York City, Zohran Mandami has been apparently delivering on some of these policies that he ran on. I got 3 of them to drop for you tonight. So if you're in New York and you voted for Zohran to get these things done, he's moving very quickly. So good news for the working class. We'll get into all of that. I'm also going to discuss Marjorie Taylor Greene, I told you, has been deciding to work along with Ro Khanna here to build some type of populist coalition. Well, apparently someone is now coming out that I think you might be surprised to hear this from, that is applauding this and is saying that people should welcome her. Wait till you find out who that's coming from. And last but not least, this story about the influencer who died in Tanzania. I have new information about that. They said that, apparently at first it was reported that she unalived herself. Now there's new information that points to the contrary. So we're going to get into all of those stories tonight, ladies and gents. Let's get things started here with our first guest. His name is Larry C. Johnson. You have seen him here before. He's a former CIA analyst. Let's go ahead and bring him back in. What's going on, Larry? Thank you so much.
Hey, just enjoying some pleasant weather in Florida.
You know what? The weather has actually been pretty nice here in Massachusetts the past couple of days. It was like 70 degrees, which is unusual this time of year.
Yeah,
But
that's great.
Yeah, yeah. I do get envious of you guys sometimes down there. During the winter, I get very envious.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, no shoveling snow here, no snow blowers.
Exactly. You don't have to deal with any of that. So, okay, Larry, let's get started with Iran first. This is a big one. You guys know Donald Trump had announced that he implemented this block in the Strait of Hormuz and that they weren't going to allow any of these ships to get through. I told you one of those ships that was a Chinese ship, the Rich Starry, was able to get through. And now it is being reported that dozens of ships, including Iranian and Chinese linked vessels, sail straight through Donald Trump's blockade. Larry, I want to get your opinion about this. It seems that that blockade that Donald Trump implemented there did not work out in his favor.
Right. Well, the problem is we don't have enough ships, and we shouldn't be doing the blockade. And see if you can follow this logic. So in Vietnam, we said, to save the village, we have to destroy it. Okay? So now we got a corollary with this event. To open the strait, we have to blockade it. And you're going, what? It's crazy. And the reality is the U.S. ships that are there, the Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier, then you have two Marine Expeditionary Units. Each of those, they have what's called an LHD or an LHA. They look like a miniature aircraft carrier. They're designed primarily to carry helicopters and vertical takeoff landing planes like the Raptor. And then, or no, the Osprey, excuse me, the Osprey. Got my birds mixed up. And so there are only like three ships in those MEUs. This is a big ocean out there. And we've got some destroyers that are hanging around, but again, the ships don't immediately, they don't have a way to automatically identify themselves as, hey, we're pro-Iranian, stop us, or no, I'm with the Saudis, leave us alone. So this was just a symbolic gaslighting by the Trump administration to make it look like they were doing something. One of my military buddies described it as said, it's we got the kind of security you do at the mall with the mall cop. Okay, so they walk around. It could be nice guys or gals, but they walk around. They don't have weapons, and so not a lot they can do. And Trump, Trump's have trouble figuring out what he's trying to do, because initially it was we don't care if the strait's open or not our problem. Let other people take care of it. Then he ridiculed and complained about the Europeans for failing to open it. You're not helping us open it. Then a week ago Sunday on Western Easter Sunday, I divide, Eastern Orthodox had theirs this last Sunday. But on Western Easter Sunday, Trump put out this vile, vicious post, using the F-bomb and call them crazy because they're demanding that they open that strait immediately. And then he's followed that up now by saying, no, we're going to have a blockade. So, you got to step back and say, what's the purpose? The reality is the United States does not have the military power to open the strait. And here's why. Iran has what are called coastal defense cruise missiles. They have short-range ballistic missiles. They have underwater drones. They have drones that float on top of the water, and they have drones that fly in the air. None of those, with the exception of the underwater drone and the on top of the water drone, all those other weapon systems I've described to you it can be inland, 5 miles, 10 miles, even further inland. So just if we try to destroy things along the coast, that's still not going to guarantee that Iran will not be able to fire missiles at any ship that tries to go in. So that's why the strait is effectively closed. And if the United States dares to sell its ships close to Iranian shore, they're going to be attacked by those missiles. That's why, in fact, the Abraham Lincoln, about 4 weeks ago now, we're ending week 7 of this war. It was within 220 miles of the coast. It got lit up by some cruise missiles and some drones. They hit the deck, they caused some damage, and so it hightailed it out of there, went back out to about 700 miles. So, can't touch us here. So this is a show. It's more for political consumption in the United States than actually having any effect on what's taking place in terms of ship activity in the Strait of Hormuz.
So ultimately, they would have to have ground troops go in, but they also know that that would be a disaster as well.
Well, yeah. Well, look, if you're going to have ground troops, you have to have an assembly point where all those troops come together, and they have to be close enough so that they can then deploy into Iran. Well, the only place they could do that is like up in Kuwait, and from there, it's a relatively narrow opening. Let's say, oh well, we want to insert 10,000 paratroopers in. Okay, that's going to take close to 150 to 300 C-130 airplanes. That's a lot of, and when I say 330 of those planes, or actually no, I take it back. It's 150 to 175. Our total force of C-130s, entire inventory is 330. So we would have to use half of those planes, and the odds that they could get shot down are quite high. So a ground invasion, it's not even a viable option. It's something that armchair quarterbacks and generals like to play with, but in terms of the practicality of it, it is impractical and dangerous.
Well, one of the things that Iran said they are not going to budge on has to deal with the nuclear weapon here. I want to bring this in to show it to people. This statement that was just made by Iran's foreign ministry spokesman. I want you guys to hear what he said here. This is one of the big reasons why things did not go the way that he wanted it to. The U.S. wanted it to for those peace talks. So listen to what he says here, and this is the English version.
Iran's rights that have been established under international law are non-negotiable. Iran's right to the peaceful use of nuclear energy is not a right that someone has granted us so that they can try to strip it away through pressure or war. This right is part of the entitlements Iran enjoys as a member of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and as long as we are a party to it, we must be able to benefit from its advantages.
Spokesman Ismail Baghouti added that
Yeah, so they weren't, Iran's not willing, to budge on that basically. So
Right.
this whole mission, it was just Julian Assange made this statement that he said the goal is not necessarily to win these wars. And with Donald Trump, he likes to win, like he likes to be a winner, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I don't know what they were thinking here. I don't know what they
Wait. What was that? What was that word you used? Was thinking? You
thinking.
think they were thinking? Boy, you're an optimist.
Yeah, I don't know what they thought was going to come of this, obviously.
Yeah, so let's be clear what Iran is insisting on. Iran is insisting on the right to do peaceful enrichment of nuclear material. That's why they signed the JCPOA 11 years ago now. They would limit themselves, I think it was to 5% enrichment. But in exchange for that, the sanctions, all these economic sanctions that have been applied by the United States and Europe, assets that have been seized, the sanctions applied by the UN and the International Atomic Energy Agency, those are all supposed to be lifted. So Iran complied. It allowed IAEA inspectors to come in. And Iran is a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Despite that, after they did everything they were supposed to, the West welched on the deal. Donald Trump came in, tore it up, said, oh, we're not doing that. So Iran then embarked on, they started enriching, they enriched up to 60%. Now, you can build a nuclear bomb that would, be through fission. But it's large, it's unwieldy, it really can't be put on a missile. But all Iran was trying to do was using that to say, okay, we're going to keep enriching to try to put pressure on you, the West, to uphold your part of the deal. So where Iran stands right now, they are going to retain the right to enrich uranium. Some of it at 20% is used for medical isotopes. So they could go up as high as that. But they are still willing to allow IAEA inspectors. They are still part of the NPT, unlike Israel, who's not a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty and who does not allow any inspections whatsoever of its nuclear sites. So Iran, though, is committed to not building the bomb. And let me tell you how we know this. During the 1980, when the United States encouraged Saddam Hussein to invade Iraq, he did. Invade Iran, excuse me. Too many eyes out there. And then the United States, under Ronald Reagan, supplied precursor chemicals that were used to produce chemical weapons. And the first use of those chemical weapons was in 1983. The last one was in August of 1988. And in between those 2 points, they did 18 other chemical weapon attacks on Iran. During that entire time, Iran never retaliated in kind. They did not build chemical weapons, and they did not use chemical weapons. And the reason was, this is an Islamic republic, they saw it as a sin against God or a sin against Allah. That's why they didn't do that. And that was the main reason why the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said, hey, no, we're not building this. It is against what we believe. And, the Iranians are some of the best educated people in the world in terms of engineering, science, and math. They easily have the ability to build one if they wanted. But they have chosen not to because here's a novel concept. They believe it is a sin against God, and they believe if they do something like that, they are violating their religious principles. I find that sort of refreshing myself, that they truly believe in something to the point that they're not going to dishonor themselves. And instead, they've been willing to sign it. So there is a possibility right now, if this ceasefire holds, particularly the ceasefire between Lebanon, between Hezbollah and the IDF, and I've got my doubts on that. We can talk about that a little bit later. But if that holds, then we are set up where Donald Trump can get a win. And the win would be this. He would announce to the world that Iran has agreed to permanently forego building a nuclear device. Now, Iran's in accepting that, Iran's only admitted what it's already doing. So it's not having to change its position. And Donald Trump will be able to explain this away because that's essentially the JCPOA agreement that was made in 2015. But he'll be able to say the problem with JCPOA was it had a 10-year limit on it. Now we've got these full safeguards, and we're sure that it's going to be monitored. And Iran may, in order to cut that deal, if they get a deal that means that they're not going to face any more attacks, they may be willing to say, okay, that 60% enriched uranium, we'll turn that over to the Russians or to the Chinese for safekeeping. So there's a deal here that could be had. I don't know though if Donald Trump, he is mentally unbalanced. The man is all over the spectrum. 1 minute he says something that sounds sane, and then the next minute he's popping off. He just tonight again, he attacks Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, as how they're losers and they have no audience on their channels, and it's like, are you kidding me? Candace is weighing in at like 5.9 million, and Tucker's at 5.5 million. I don't know. I'd take 10% of that.
Yeah, I mean, he's lost it completely. And I think we have to talk about the financial implications too, right? Because another way that the U.S. government can hurt these countries is economically. And there's already talks about that. This is coming from, you guys saw this guy before. He was the one that was in that interview. This is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. listen to what they're planning to do to Iran's banking system.
Coffers and into the country. We are partnering with our Gulf allies who, having been fired upon for almost 40 days, are much more willing to share the bank accounts of members of the Iranian regime in their countries. We are reaching out to banks, including Chinese banks, to remind them of that any Iranian goods and the purchases that are of are forbidden, and that the dollars would be sanctioned, and that we will press for secondary sanctions if there's a problem.
So first and foremost, this guy always sounds and seems nervous to me when he's speaking, but Larry, they're talking about trying to hurt them economically as well, and using these Gulf states to do so, like Saudi Arabia and, UAE, etc. I'm not sure that this would work.
Yeah, he's delusional. Okay, and again, this is the same guy that said that they're going to impose all these tough sanctions on Russia and Iran and oil. Boy, we'll stop them. And then 4 weeks ago comes out and says, "Oh, we're lifting all those sanctions so that the Iranians and Russians can sell oil to keep the price of oil down. To keep the supply up." What he's missed is that Iran is now part of BRICS. Iran is accepting payment. Hey, you want? They're like the doorman at a popular nightclub, and you want to get inside, got to pay a cover charge. So Iran's out there collecting the cover charge. Oh, and you want to leave, you got to pay a cover charge to leave, but they're accepting that in Chinese yuan, and then so that money is flowing into a bank in Shanghai. So Iran has totally cut itself off from Western banks. It's irrelevant to them now. And they're also talking about that they'll start accepting payments in their own currency, which will then be a way to strengthen the rial. Bessent thinks he thinks he's playing poker with a full house, and he's only holding a pair of twos. So that's not a strong hand. And what Iran has demonstrated to the world, that it is in a position that it has a literal chokehold on the world economy right now. I think what's important for people that are watching and listening to understand is the oil that was in tankers on February 28th, the day that this war started, and those tankers were already full and they're already out of the Gulf. It's taken them about a month and a half, anywhere from 4 weeks to 7 weeks today to get to their destination to unload. So although on paper, by shutting the Persian Gulf at the Strait of Hormuz, that disrupted on paper 20% of the global supply of oil. But the fact of the matter is that 20% was actually out on the ocean, still capable of being delivered. Starting like this week and next week, then the full effect of having lost 20% of the world's oil, that's going to start being felt significantly. Like yesterday in Singapore, if you look at what they call the futures market, you go on there and they say, the Brent is one category of oil that's up in Europe, and West Texas International, WTI, those are like $95, $98 in the future. However, when these ships offload the oil, there's another price. And yesterday in Singapore, the price per barrel was $210. So yeah, big difference from 95 to 210. So you're going to see the price of oil. It's going to be the actual oil on board ships. That's going to be sold for anywhere from $140 to $200 or more, depending on the country, depending on the market. And so this loss of supply is going to drive down GDP around the world. It's not going to be focused on just one or two countries. It's going to be a global phenomenon. So the economic effect, and the same thing applies to liquid natural gas. Same thing applies to the urea for fertilizer. Same thing applies to the helium that is produced out of the Gulf. So the full economic effects of this are going to be literally devastating, particularly for the Western countries, those countries that are aligned with the United States and relying upon the dollar. You've already seen across the board countries that used to be eager, we got a war going on. Let's get into the dollar. Let's buy U.S. Treasury bills. They're not doing that now. They're buying Chinese bills or bonds. It's called the Panda. And Deutsche Bank in Germany was one of the first ones to issue it. So what we're seeing is the emergence of an alternative financial order that the U.S. does not control. And that's sort of what's driving Washington crazy too. We got to control that. Well, you don't have control of it. And Iran has just demonstrated, you can't touch this.
Yeah, we could possibly be on our way to seeing a whole new world. And I do want to show you guys what I mean by that. It's not just Spain that has started to push back, and they've done so in probably one of the biggest ways. But Italy, surprisingly, they're pushing back now. This is in Italian, so I'll go ahead and read it for you. But in view of the current situation, the government has decided to suspend the automatic renewal of defense agreement with Israel. So this is the Israeli prime minister. You guys can see it here.
Voi non me lo avete chiesto, ma il governo, ad esempio, in considerazione della situazione attuale che stiamo vivendo, ha deciso di sospendere il rinnovo automatico dell'accordo di difesa con Israele.
Yeah. So Italy.
That's the Italian prime minister. You accidentally said Israel.
Oh, sorry, Italian.
Well,
yeah,
I keep doing. I keep messing up Israel, Iran, Iraq. Let's make sure they all have a different vowel or consonant at the start of their names. Okay?
Yeah, but that was a surprise to hear that come from Italy. So I feel like Spain kind of lit a match here.
Well, the other thing that Italy did, and Donald Trump's out on his Truth Social complaining about it, is Italy said, if you're flying any planes out of our bases, and there are NATO bases in Italy that are going to attack Iran, forget about it. You're not using our bases for that. And so Trump's upset about that too. So Italy's, they're doing more than just saying, we're not selling to Israel. They're saying, we're not going to allow you to attack Iran.
Yeah, this is big, you guys. And then one other thing I want to show you guys on the subject of Iran, Reuters, they posted this video and people are really melting down, of course, in the comments. I just want you guys to see this other side of Tehran. So this is northern Tehran. And I want you to see what it's like and what people are saying here. And notice something. Notice you see women here not wearing a hijab. See, people in the comments, Larry, they melted down when Reuters posted this video. But I just want to show you guys.
In northern Tehran, residents exercised in the park as they tried to resume their daily lives. This affluent neighborhood has been spared the worst of the strikes from the United States and Israel's war on Iran. Still, residents here are holding their breath amid a fragile ceasefire between the U.S., Israel, and Iran.
I don't want to say it's normal, but as an Iranian, with such a history, it's not very bad. We can live with it, but we prefer to live in peace.
At a coffee shop in northern Tehran, this 28-year-old IT worker described what the past few weeks have been like for her.
Yes, it sounds of war, it sounds of bombs. Of course we're afraid. But, we try to be relaxed and hope to the peace days.
The U.S. and Iran have so far failed to reach an agreement to end their war despite marathon talks in Pakistan. Many citizens are waiting to see whether U.S. President Trump will extend the ceasefire.
So I just wanted you guys to see that. And you too, Larry, this is a more affluent part of Tehran from what I understand. But did you notice all the women in this video who are not wearing a hijab?
Yeah, in fact, I didn't see any wearing hijab. And I know from last year, Alistair Crook and his wife, Asleen, were in Tehran, along with Max Blumenthal and his wife. And, they walked around. Those women didn't have their heads covered, and they didn't see, a few women did, but not many. The other thing a lot of Americans just don't know about Israel is the oldest Jewish population in the world, and you'll get some people out of Ethiopia who'll argue with you on this point, but they live in Tehran. And in fact, and I got this information from Yakov Rapkin, who's a professor in Canada. He was born in Leningrad back in 1946, but he's written extensively on Zionism. And he went into Iran and interviewed all the Jewish leaders and the people, and discovered that the Islamic Republic of Iran requires every child, regardless of religion, to have 1 day of religious education per week. And what he discovered is the Jewish children are required to have 1 day a week with the rabbi. They're not required to learn Islam. They are required to study Judaism. Now think about that. An Islamic Republic that's telling the Jews that you should study Judaism. And the same applies to Christianity. So that's why I say this evil caricature that's painted of Iran as these fanatical extremists that are wanting to enforce Sharia law in the world. It's just a lie. It's a bald-faced lie.
Yeah, I think more people are starting to wake up for sure. I want to pivot to Lebanon because there was a school that was just bombed in Lebanon. For those who have not seen this, I'll go ahead and bring this in here. Southern Lebanon is being greatly hit by Israel. Because it's YouTube, I'm just going to slide through it here. They have been attacking southern Lebanon immensely. And this was a school in Lebanon. I've seen images of southern Lebanon basically flattened right now at this point. So the images that I have seen of Lebanon, Larry, look very similar to what we have seen with Gaza. And my prediction is right now that Lebanon is becoming the new Gaza. And I want to get your take on this before we get into this ceasefire that was announced.
Yeah, no, the Israel's certainly trying to do that to at least southern Lebanon. And the history of that, and I've been having to bone up on it. The Lebanese Civil War started in 1975, and it involved an attack on a group of Palestinians that were coming from a political rally, and it was an attack by the Phalangists, who were a Christian sect, an extremist Christian sect in Lebanon. And so that evolved into the Civil War. And then in 1982, the PLO was then the primary organization that was attacking Israel. And the PLO was in southern Lebanon. There were frictions with some of the Shia Muslims there. But then Israel invaded to drive out the PLO. And they succeeded in forcing the PLO leadership to evacuate. I think they went to Algeria, or I think it was Algeria. But initially, because the PLO had been a little aggressive with some of the Shia villagers at the time. And so initially, some of the Shia villagers welcomed the Israelis, but that didn't last long. And a few months later, in September of 82, you had the Sabra and Shatila refugee camps, the massacres that was carried out by Christian militias, Lebanese Christian militias, with the backing of the Israeli military. So that, and it was in 82 that Hezbollah was born, and that became the defender of the Shia. So Israel's been attacking southern Lebanon since at least for the last 44 years in one form, fashion, or another. And 20 years ago, they invaded the 2006 invasion. That Hezbollah defeated them, forced them to retreat. The Israelis will say, "Oh, that's a lie. They didn't defeat us. We decided to withdraw." And so they're doing it again. But today, it was announced about 3 hours ago that there is supposed to be a ceasefire between Hezbollah and the Israelis. And so if that holds, that's going to be very important.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and bring that in now. This was the announcement Breaking, President Trump says a 10-day ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel begins at 5 p.m. Thursday. I just had an excellent conversation with the highly respected President Joseph of Lebanon and Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu of Israel. These two leaders have agreed that in order to achieve peace between their countries, they will formally begin a 10-day ceasefire. On Tuesday, the two countries met for the first time in 34 years in D.C. with our great Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. I have directed Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Rubio together with the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, Dan Razan Kane, to work with Israel and Lebanon to achieve lasting peace. Now, this comes after Benjamin Netanyahu said there would be no peace with Lebanon, no ceasefire. I want you guys to see this.
אני מחזק את תושבי הצפון שממשיכים לעמוד איתן. במקביל כוחותינו ממשיכים להכות בחיזבאללה. הלחימה מתמקדת בבינג' בל. בינג' בל זו הייתה בירת חיזבאללה בדרום לבנון. זה המקום שחסן נסראללה אמר לפני 26 שנים, הישראלים הם קוראי עכביש. אנחנו עומדים להכריע את בינג' בל, אנחנו עומדים בעצם לחסל את המעוז הגדול הזה של חיזבאללה. במקביל נתתי אתמול הנחיות לצה"ל להמשיך לעבות את אזור הביטחון, וגם לפרוס אותו מזרחה למורדות החרמון, כדי שנוכל לעזור עוד יותר טוב לאחינו הדרוזים בשעת מצוקה. במקביל אנחנו מנהלים משא ומתן עם לבנון. המשא ומתן הזה לא התקיים 40 שנה ומעלה. זה מתקיים עכשיו כי אנחנו מאוד חזקים והמדינות באות אלינו, לא רק לבנון. במשא ומתן עם לבנון שני יעדים מרכזיים. אחד, פירוק חיזבאללה, ושניים, שלום בר קיימא. שלום מתוך עוצמה.
So he said the first step is to defeat Hezbollah and then get to some type of lasting peace here.
עוד דבר כמובן. ידידינו האמריקנים מעדכנים אותנו כל הזמן על המגעים שלהם עם איראן. המטרות שלנו ושל ארצות הברית זהות. אנחנו רוצים לראות החומר המועשר מוצא מאיראן, אנחנו רוצים לראות ביטול של יכולת ההשערה בתוך איראן, וכמובן אנחנו רוצים לראות את פתיחת המיצרים. מוקדם מדי לומר איך הדבר הזה יסתיים, או איך הוא אפילו יתקדם. ולקראת האפשרות שהלחימה תחודש, אנחנו ערוכים
So this is the important part for people to pay attention to, because basically what he said here is we're talking about negotiations, but at the same time, he made it very clear that he wants that enriched uranium removed from Iran. Otherwise, he will continue the fighting. And so I want to get to your point here, Larry, what you were saying about if that ceasefire holds.
Well, it's clear that Donald Trump has told Bibi Netanyahu to shut up and to go with a ceasefire, which they have, but there is also reports that Israel started breaking it. The key to whether this will work is if I don't know if it's J.D. Vance or who on the Trump side, but if they can convince him that he's going to be seen as the great peacemaker, I mean, if they feed his ego with that, if you go through with this, even though it requires you to disappoint Israel, but you're going to be celebrated throughout the region and throughout the world. For a narcissist like Trump, who's in the early stages of dementia, man, that may be too good an offer to pass up. Now, the ceasefire that's been in place between the United States, Israel, and Iran since 2 weeks ago Tuesday, since a week ago Tuesday, that's still holding, but that is supposed to end next Tuesday. Now, with this new agreement between Israel and Lebanon, and if it continues to apply to Hezbollah, then that means that ceasefire as well will be extended, I think, between the United States, Israel, and Iran. So the best outcome would be there won't be any more bombing, shooting, drone attacks by either side up until April 26th. So that's 10 days from now. That is so and in that time frame, you've got China, Russia pushing very hard on negotiations. They're working the Gulf Arabs. They're talking to Iran, and Iran has laid out that 10-point plan. Those were not items to be negotiated over. So, for example, Iran said, unfreeze our assets. They're not going to sit down and say, okay, well, you can unfreeze part now and part 6 months from now. I said, no. If you want us to talk, and if you want to actually get a permanent settlement here, unfreeze the assets, lift the sanctions, get your military forces out of this region, because they're only there for one reason, to attack us. And that's the one way we get a guarantee that you're not going to attack us, if you start withdrawing your forces. Now, that sounds hopeful that the United States appears ready to accept that, except just tonight, the Pentagon announced they're going to start attacking any ship hauling Iranian oil, gas around the world. So if they do that, then Iran's going to say, okay, fine, there's no agreement, and the war will recommence, and the U.S. Bases, what's left of them, will be destroyed, and Israel is going to face significant attacks that will further decimate their economy. So I hope that's not what comes out of this, but let's call this a potential glimmer of light in the darkness. That if that glimmer grows into a big light show, then yeah, we might be able to get out of this alive.
Yeah. Professor Morandi said that Iran is they're ready. They're already preparing for this to restart. Yes. So people have to pay attention. That's why I said I don't think this is over just yet. And this is where Congress comes in, right? So there were two pieces of legislation that were brought to the floor to vote in the House and in the Senate. And I want to get into this one first. So the House, they failed to pass a resolution to end Trump's war with Iran by one vote. So this is where we point to the rotating villain here, Larry. The vote was 213 to 214. And the one person who decided to vote along with the Republican side is Jared Golden. Now, I had never heard of this guy until just today. And I was like, okay, where'd this guy come from? But they do this thing, Larry, where they'll find one member that is not going to hold the line, and we call them the rotating villain. But Jared Golden, who's a representative from Maine, he's taken over $3.4 million from the pro-Israel lobby. So that unfortunate, that piece of legislation there to end the war with Iran did not pass the House because of this one person.
Yeah. Hey, Congress, as Israel says, we got the best Congress money can buy. And they're spending it liberally. And this is what's rankling so many Americans now. And you and I think, were talking about this earlier, that a growing percentage of people under the age of 50 are turning strongly anti-Israel, strongly against it. That what used to be sort of a guarantee that the vast majority of Americans supported and backed Israel, that's going away. And I don't think Israel can recover from this. And it would be a good thing. The United States needs to free itself from the Zionist control of our Congress and of our president. So that's why it's one thing for Trump to say, okay, great, we got the ceasefire. But then, minutes later, he turns and goes around and starts viciously attacking, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson again, Megyn Kelly. When you go down the list of everybody he's attacking the Pope. He's attacking Riley Gaines, the girl, the swimmer out of Kentucky who was campaigning against having transgenders, males, compete against biological women. Trump's lighting them all up, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. So people that have actually been, his strongest supporters, he's attacking them, and then been surrendering though to Israel. So, that's why I say it's very iffy. I think the fanaticism involved on the part of the Zionists and Bibi Netanyahu is such that I think they ultimately will coerce Donald Trump into going their way, which means this war will restart, and people will be dying, and it will be terrible.
Yeah. I want to show people about the other resolution too, because I want people you might be surprised by some of these people One of them being Rand Paul. He is getting ratioed by libertarians on social media. The other piece of resolution was to block sending arms to Israel. For those who are not aware, it passed through the House and then it ended up in the Senate. So Rand Paul, who claims to be anti-war, voted to continue to send arms to Israel. He also has received some money from the pro-Israel lobby too, for those who are not aware. Not quite like his dad in that sense, but he was one of the disappointments for many people. This one I saw coming. You guys have got to hear about the Chuck Schumer vote. I want to show you this one.
Chuck Schumer was one of only 7 Democrats to vote to send bulldozers to Israel. 40 Senate Democrats voted no. These bulldozers are used to illegally destroy Palestinian villages. Mr. Schumer, you are out of touch with the base of this party and with your own caucus. Step aside.
Yeah. So for those who are not aware, there were seven Democrat senators that would not approve stopping to send those weapons to Israel. He's right about the bulldozers and what they're used for. But here are the names of the 7 people. So for those who are not aware, you can check and see if these are one of your representatives here. Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut, Chris Coons from Delaware, very much predictable Chris Coons there. Catherine Cortez Masto from Nevada, Jackie Rosen from Nevada, Kirsten Gillibrand from New York, also predictable. Chuck Schumer, of course, predictable, and John Fetterman, predictable. So these are the seven senators that stopped that bill from passing there. So, I mean, here they are. Again, they're all bought and paid for.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, this is, we are the great enablers of a genocide. And, Israel, instead of treating the Palestinians with honor and with respect as human beings, they're treated as subhuman. And it's, I'm not making a groundless accusation. You can see in the Hebrew press and in Hebrew media, the Hebrew language media, that Bibi Netanyahu ultimately calls them Amalek. The Palestinians are Amalek, and that's a biblical reference to a group of people this God, whoever was the God of that Bible, was telling them to go out and kill all these women, children, men, animals, kill them all. A death cult, I don't associate a death cult with a divine deity that is a creator of life. A deity that wants death is something else. And, that's where I draw the line. And unfortunately, theological issues do enter into this whole debate. And it is you can't ignore it. You have to understand it.
But there is some hope here, Larry, as you pointed to with that poll earlier. I do want to show people this one. It goes to show you that things are really changing. This is the pro-Israel poll for those under the age of 50. You guys have got to see this.
They have very much shifted away from Israel. Look at this. Net favorability of Israel among men under the age of 50. In 2022, not too bad, but not too hot to trot either at -3 points. By 2025, again, down we go, minus 22 points. That is a 19-point shift in just 3 years' time. But it gets even worse. Look at this for Israel. Minus 47 points. That's a 44-point shift away from Israel on the net favorability amongst young men who, of course, shifted massively into the Republican column back in 2024. And they have been shifting away from Israel over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
This is a big one.
Yeah, there's been a concerted level of propaganda out of Hollywood over the last, I'll say 66 years. Going back to 1960 when the movie Exodus came out with Paul Newman, and Eva Marie Saint, I believe. That was it portrayed Israel as this, like a small child fighting against a vicious bully. And it was such a sympathetic portrayal. And, a lot of Americans my age, I'm 71. I was only 5 years old back then. But saw that movie during the 60s and into the 70s, and then all the different Holocaust movies, and I'm not suggesting that there was not a Holocaust, but those movies again were specifically designed to promote the empathy towards Israel and its right to exist. But you've never seen we'd have a completely different culture if the movies showing the Israelis attacking the Palestinians, if movies were made showing that the Israelis and that the early founders of the Israeli state, Menachem Begin, they were bona fide terrorists. Terrorists being someone who uses violence against civilians for a political purpose. And so what's happening now is the breakdown of while the mainstream media controls a lot of the narrative is really not relevant much anymore. What's going on online, like with your show, I think you got over almost 400,000 subscribers. Hey, MSNBC would kill to have that many.
I'm not there yet, Larry. Not there yet. Close.
but you're moving in that direction, and the point is you have influence, and you add in people like Tucker and like Candace and like Joe Rogan, even Alex Jones with his he's sort of he's an acquired taste. I'll put it that way. But there are a lot of people are out there. They're getting their information this way, and Israel can't. That's why Israel is so desperate to control, if they can, TikTok. That's why they had a big Zionist backer of theirs get control of TikTok, and then they're going to try to use censorship. But like water, like life always finds a way, and despite all the attempts to censor points of view and shut out any criticism of the Zionist attacks on the Palestinians, the information's still getting through. And that's where what we've seen has happened now with Iran. Iran is basically drawn a line in the sand. It's okay. We're not going to stand silent anymore and let the Palestinians be murdered.
Yep, that's right. All right, Larry, thank you so much for your time. Also, Larry, where can people find your work?
If they look for me at sonar21.com, they'll find me, SONAR21.com. And Sabby, it's always a pleasure to chat with you, and I thank you for this discussion. We covered a lot of Good God, that's almost an hour.
Yeah.
Hey, they say time flies when you're having a good time.
All right.
Listen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Larry Johnson. You've seen him here before. He does a number of interviews, but definitely follow his work. He has some really, really informative things to tell you. So tonight's theme is a whole new world. And is that possible? And I hope you'll see that with some of the stories that we have tonight. I do want to go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really do appreciate you, fam. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories here. We have the ultimate, the Sabinators. Don't forget about the Sabsters. We've got those Sabbies as well. Yes, we do. The most popular group there. And of course, we also have members. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the ticker there throughout the stream. I want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. Let's give it up for Linda Black, Taylor, Cynthia Harvey, and Jen. Welcome, and thank you guys so much. Really do appreciate you there. Okie dokie. Eric, can we go to part 2 of Type VNC? Let's go to some of the comments, and then we'll keep it moving and grooving. Let's give a shout out to Shanna Bell, who just became a member. Let's give Shanna Bell a big whoop, whoop. Mentoring says, Sabby, please interview Morris Pearl of Patriotic Millionaires in NYC, which is a group of millionaires begging Kathy Hochul to tax them, but she refuses. He's former managing director at BlackRock. Okay, I can put that on my list. Thank you, Kevin. Jerry's take on China. Expat UK cop now in China, 15 years. Expertise, easy to get on. I can have him contact you if you like. Yes, that would be great. Send me an email. Thank you, Measured Man. I know propaganda, but I think the one hit today was when Iran did the Lego video today and told the U.S. once Israel gets their way, they will nuke the U.S. to gain full control. In my opinion, I believe them. I believe that too. I don't know if you guys heard, but apparently the Lego videos have been banned from YouTube. They got rid of those guys, but you can still see them on X. Thank you, Mark. Candace has such a pretty face. Okay. You can let her know that, Mark. Thank you for this one, Mark. Larry, Iran has a straight recent SNL. Thank you, James. Hola, Senor Johnson. Toda vida. Oh, boy. Oh, James. Toda vida ondine la bandera confederada en Bredanaki estas días. I don't know. I haven't taken Spanish in a long time. I can understand some of that, but James. Thank you, Angry. Sabby, the other day, Alexander had a nice conversation with Ben on transhumanism. I feel it's an important conversation. I managed to clip it out. Oh, interesting. Thank you, Roger Meadows in the house. Prediction, Sab will hit 400K by Tuesday, but Thursday latest. You guys are very adventurous here. You, Roger, and Larry. Yeah, I don't see that coming. Thank you, Mai says, thanks, Sabby and Larry. And shout out to Sandra here who says, thank you for having Larry Johnson, Sabrina. You're welcome. Let's get that Rumble rant. Let's keep it moving and grooving. All right. Thank you for the Rumble rant, Angry Pro. Sabby, what are your thoughts about those like me who feel that no one should support the U.S. military after World War II? That there's nothing honorable about choosing to be a pawn for the MIC and the bourgeoisie. Yeah, I mean, I hear you, bruh. I hear you. I mean, my family came from military, but talking to them nowadays, they'll tell you if they could do it all over again, they wouldn't. Thank you for this one. The GDP is not an accurate measurement of how well the people are doing. The closest measurement for that is purchasing power parity. The GDP only measures how corporations and the rich are doing. Hey. All right. And thank you for this one. Eric, I hope the message I sent the other day was somewhat helpful to expand upon 11 demands. Were you able to pass along the messages? P.S. I just sent an important PSA via 11 demands contact form. We'll have to check through the emails there. I usually check emails like once a week, typically, because there's a lot of stuff going on in that inbox, but usually once a week for me. Okay, so tonight's theme again is a whole new world. And I want you to imagine if that could be possible. It seems like we could be heading in that direction. Before we get into the next story, do me a solid and smash the like button if you haven't had a chance to do so. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share just like a Care Bear. Let's get started with this next story. This is pretty interesting. So Marjorie Taylor Greene and Ro Khanna, they have decided to work together yet again, this time not just for the purpose of like the Epstein files, but for a bigger coalition, a bigger collaboration. And some people are not happy about that. Some people have attacked Ro Khanna. They've said, how dare you talk to her? Some people have attacked Marjorie Taylor Greene and said, how dare you talk to him? But one person, and this might surprise people, one person who is clarifies themselves as a progressive, actually agrees with this. And some people are not happy with her. Let's go ahead and get into it. Ilhan Omar, she is pushing Democrats to embrace Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yeah, this is happening, folks. Let's go ahead and get into this. Of course, Mediaite, they published this. This is from the interview that she had recently with Pod Save America. I want you to hear it directly from her. So listen to what she said.
I think they're starting to understand that a lot of us, our objection wasn't just to him. It was to what he wanted to create, what we could see he was trying to create. A lot of the divisions that we have, a lot of the toxic, rhetoric that we see, a lot of the anger that so many people have, a lot of the fact that, there is no trust in public service. is something that he fomented for many years, and has seen it actually has given birth to it, and we all are suffering the consequences of it. And I'm glad, as my fellow Americans, that they understand that they want us to chart a new chapter in America.
So you guys know there's been a lot of talk about, people are not happy with both parties. And we've been hearing that from both sides. Like, I've heard it from conservatives, I've heard it from Democrats. And that message is getting across to some of the politicians in DC. They're some of the ones that are willing to sit down and hear what people are saying, right? And that brings up this conversation here about Marjorie Taylor Greene, because what they're going to ask her is, well, did you have a chance to speak to Marjorie Taylor Greene while she was in Congress before she left? And I think you guys might be surprised by what she said here. Listen to this.
Have you called Marjorie, or you guys talked at all? I mean, I know she's not in Congress anymore, so you probably wouldn't run into her, but I don't know, it seems powerful, and it's a good message, I think, to a lot of people out there who are tempted to scold former MAGA folks and say, I told you, we were right, you were wrong, right? As opposed to kind of building a bigger tent.
Yeah, I did see Ro Khanna, give her a big shout out the other day. I haven't called her, but I did before she left. I found her on the House floor and thanked her for, her support in ending the genocide, her willingness to speak up about what the people in Gaza have experienced and what our tax dollars have allowed to take place.
So Ilhan Omar said that she thanked Marjorie Taylor Greene before she left for being willing to push back against Donald Trump. And I do want to say this thing here. No, Marjorie Taylor Greene is not perfect. No politician is perfect. But this is what many of us expected the Justice Democrats to do, to push back against the Biden administration, right? To push back against, that was the assignment, was to go into the Democratic Party, and it was going to be a hostile takeover. So when they first got in and AOC started protesting outside Nancy Pelosi's office, that was actually a good thing. That's what she was supposed to do. But apparently there was a talking to that happened there, and all that kind of stopped, and they started to go along with Democrat leadership. So when the genocide happened under the Biden administration, when it started under the Biden administration, that's where the Justice Democrats should have been just as vocal publicly as Marjorie Taylor Greene against the Biden administration. Yes, they came out and they, as when pressured, they came out and said, the genocide needs to stop. What's happening in Gaza is wrong. But they didn't call out Biden and Kamala by name. And I think that was the difference. Marjorie Taylor Greene was willing to call out Trump by name while she was still in Congress. So that's what they were supposed to do. All right. So yes, that means that you might lose your seat. Yes, that means that the president of the United States may come for you in such a way that if they don't come after you financially to get you to lose that seat, they could try to redraw your district to get you out of that seat, or they can just harass you and make your life miserable, and you will just decide to leave on your own. Yeah, that's the risk that you take. But that was the whole purpose of Justice Democrats. They were supposed to take that risk, even if it meant they were only in Congress for one term. So, look, I have many criticisms of Marjorie Taylor Greene, but one thing I will say is this: not many people were willing to do that. Not many people were willing to stand up and call out the president that was a part of their party while they were still in Congress by name and say, you're wrong. What you are doing is wrong. So that is necessary and that is needed. And that should have happened under the Biden administration as well. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Now, AOC and Bernie Sanders, when they had this town hall not too long ago, they did say that they had conversations with Biden behind the scenes, and they were telling him, this has to stop. But what happens behind the scenes and what happens in front of the public are two different things. Marjorie Taylor Greene had conversations with Donald Trump behind the scenes as well, but she also condemned him publicly. And that matters, because if they would have done that, I can tell you there's a whole slew of people that would have had their back. That's the difference. Let me continue on here. So listen to what she says here.
As we all worked really hard to say that we have a responsibility to end this genocide and to end our financial and political support for Israel and the impunity that we have constantly provided for them as they have tried to destroy a group of people.
So if we go back to the article here, and it goes on to say, they talk about this interview that I just showed you there, and it goes on to say here, this is what one of the things that she said, right? She said, I think we should give them credit for that. The fact that they've had this wake up call of finally seeing this con man, this corrupt, chaotic man for what he is. The fact that they understand he never really had any principles outside of uplifting his ego. I think it's an important thing for us to put our arms around and say, yes, then now let's figure out how do we save our country from the disaster that this man is creating. So what she is saying that she is willing to welcome those who supported Trump and realize, okay, whoa, this guy is not what he said he was going to do. He's not doing these things. She is willing to welcome them. And I think what this says to me, because I'm going to show you this video here of Ro Khanna and Marjorie Taylor Greene in just a second. When we talk about like any type of movement, even outside of electoral politics, people have to understand, again, you're talking about 5% of the population to be greatly an impact, to be effective, right? Everybody that is marching with you, you are not going to agree with everything on. Look, there are people I marched with during the pro-Palestinian protest here in the United States. You think we agree on everything? No, I don't agree with anyone on everything. And I think what the billionaire class, the elites, and the donor class in Wall Street, what they have been very successful at doing is they have been very, very successful at making sure that we never cross that aisle, that we stay on our side and they stay on their side. But meanwhile, when you look at what's happening in DC, you literally have the Congressional Black Caucus trying to support and pass Donald Trump's surveillance reauthorization. You literally have Democrats in Congress right now passing legislation that Donald Trump wants passed. Because you see, when they do it, it's called bipartisanship. But if we try to organize with people that are on a different side, if we try to march with them or protest with them, we're called traitors, stupid, idiots, all these types of things. But they do it in DC all the time. Anything that benefits the donor class. Now, Ro Khanna and Marjorie Taylor Greene did appear on CNN together recently. So this is the first time I saw them together talking about forming this type of coalition. So listen to this.
And I just want to keep both of you on screen for a second, because I think some people might be watching and have never seen the two of you do an interview together before. I'm not sure if you...
I don't think we have.
I'm not sure if the two of you have, but that kind of speaks to this moment, and which is why we wanted to have the two of you on together, because I think you're right, Congresswoman, that the two of you have a lot of things that you still don't agree on. But there are these major issues, from the Epstein files to this war in Iran and no end in sight right now, that the two of you do agree on. And so, Congressman Khanna, I think that is a question of what you think this could potentially look like, even if people are skeptical of it being realistic.
Well, first of all, more than the policies, I think it's the way Representative Greene and I treat each other with respect. Not looking at the worst possible thing either of us has said over the last 10 years and trying to sensationalize it, but trying to actually have a dialogue to understand where the other person is coming from, where we disagree, and where we could have more common ground. You know, most Americans want to do that with their families. They want to do that with their neighbors. They're tired of us being as divided and simply looking to score political points. And when you have those kind of conversations, you realize that when it comes to corruption in government and an Epstein class that abused young girls and doesn't have consequences, well, look, the right and the left can agree that we need to have one tier of justice. When it comes not to having these foreign wars that have spent billions of dollars that could be invested in jobs here in the community here, the right and left can agree that we shouldn't be in these foreign wars. We shouldn't be giving a blank check of aid to Israel, which has a $45 billion defense budget, and we should be investing here. Our vice president shouldn't be going and reporting to Netanyahu before he reports to the United States Congress. And the issue of the cost of living. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene has talked about how people don't have health care. Now, I'm for Medicare for all. She may have different ideas on that, but we both recognize that the system is broken. And in my view, unless we start to have these conversations in a civil, thoughtful way, we're not going to actually address the fundamental issue, which is the working class, and many people in the middle class have gotten shafted in America.
So this is something that I wanted to add here. You have to remember, Ro Khanna is still in Congress. Marjorie Taylor Greene is not in Congress. Marjorie Taylor Greene, if she wanted to, she doesn't have to do anything right now. She could just sit back and write a couple of books. My experience in Congress. What I heard in the halls of Congress. You know, she could just do that right now, like a lot of people do. She really doesn't have to. She doesn't have to try to get involved in any way, shape, or form, but she's still willing to do that. Now, do I think there's a possibility that there could be a potential political run for her somewhere down the line in the future? Possibly. There could be. Do I think that Ro Khanna could be pursuing a political run in the future for a higher position? Possibly. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't born yesterday. But the reality is that these two came together for the Epstein files along with Thomas Massie. And I remember sitting back thinking to myself, where are all the other Democrats? Why didn't any other Democrats join along with Ro Khanna to push this and fight for these women? Where were they? Oh, I get it. They didn't want to join alongside of it because he was working with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie. Okay, what about before then? What about before then? Why didn't any of the other Democrats in Congress come forward to work alongside Ro Khanna for the Epstein files? Let that sit on your mind for just a second.
Congresswoman, what does that look like for you if, you know, you've talked a lot about what your constituents, your former constituents were feeling, you know, as gas prices were going up, as inflation was going up, they were still paying too much, you know, despite what the campaign promises from this administration were. I wonder what that potentially looks like for you in terms of addressing those still very real concerns from people if you're not in Congress. What would you say to that, to someone who says, well, she's not in Washington anymore? You know, what capacity does she have to directly address that?
I think I have the capacity to drive the conversation and the willingness to do so when there's very few people on the right willing to do that. I completely agree with Ro. Americans are really sick and tired of the divide, and they're sick and tired of the political drama in their lives. What they expect of their elected leaders is to make their lives easier, to make their lives more affordable. And they really would like their government to come to a point where it's seen and not necessarily heard most of the time. And I think this is something that I'm willing to involve myself in because I think the political pressure on the outside is actually becoming more powerful than the ability to get things accomplished on the inside. That's what I found firsthand.
Did you hear what she just said? You have the ability to get more things accomplished on the outside than you do in the inside in the halls of Congress. What we've been telling you. Because outside of Congress, those of us that are not a part of the DC bubble, we don't have those restrictions. I don't have to answer to Democrat leadership or Republican leadership to make decisions in my life and how I'm going to do certain things. They do. Well, not her anymore, but Ro Khanna does, and he's bucked that a couple of times. You see do you hear what she just said? So I think the more people start to realize that, the better chance we have of actually building a serious, powerful movement in this country. And it's happened before, and it can happen again.
Many Americans today are getting to the point where they think both parties have fully failed them, Republicans and Democrats. And they're coming to a point where they're saying, do we need an independent party? Or is there even a candidate that can actually represent my interest? Because
see, they've been listening. I told you guys they've been listening. People are asking for independent party. People are asking for, they've been paying attention.
As many, and it's about really the younger generations, not the older generations. We have real problems coming in the future, and it's the forward-thinking leaders that are going to be the problem solvers for that. Roe mentioned healthcare. It is a real problem, and Republicans refuse to face the issue. You know, they complain all the time about Obamacare, but they're unwilling to do anything to fix it, and I think there needs to be a real solution there. I'm not for Medicare for all, but I am for a strong solution that can help Americans. And I think that involves real work, and it can be hard work, not one that can be solved quickly with our conversation tonight. But it's also younger Americans where, say, parents and people that are married, they're both working and they're still struggling to get by. But we also have to look at Social Security, which is going to be bankrupt in 7 years, and the real problem, which is the devaluation of our dollar, which is affecting all of us, and the growing and never-ending debt that Americans find themselves falling into. So I really think this is something that America is craving, and I'm looking forward to more dialogue.
Some of us are not going to receive Social Security if things continue the way that they're going now. Like I have pretty much accepted the fact that I will probably not receive Social Security. Just a reality with the way that things are going, right? So it makes you wonder if a whole new world could be possible if we're heading in that direction, because the reality is, guys, like, what country doesn't take care of its people? What country decides to just let the people starve? What country decides that, like, we're going to put all our money into war and defense instead of taking care of our people? What country? Our country. That's why homeless rates increase, they don't decrease in this country. That's why poverty is increasing. It's not decreasing. That's why all these young people can't put a down payment on a home. And then we got AI coming in to take jobs too. So put all this together. So it just makes me wonder. Now, people are coming after Ilhan Omar. Don't get me wrong. They're like, how dare you? But that's the cult mentality. That's that cult mentality. This is why I had to say I had to leave parties. The only party I want is a party that has good music, some food, maybe something nice to drink, a good craft beer. That's the only party I want to be a part of. And even that's rare nowadays. That's it. That's the cult mentality. People tell you who you can talk to, who you can work with. I don't want that. I don't want that. This is not high school. I'm too damn old for that. So I wonder, again, could we possibly be moving towards a whole new world? Something to think about. Now we're going to go to some good news. We got some good news. Good news. All right, ladies and gents, do me a solid and smash the like button. Thank you. Okay. Look, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. When I'm right, I love to say I'm right. When I'm wrong, I don't really like saying it, but I'll say it. I was right in a sense with some things about Zohran Mandami. In some ways, I was right. I don't like some of the statements he's made about foreign policy where I feel like he's trying to toe the line still with the establishment. But I was wrong about him trying to accomplish or being able to accomplish these domestic goals. And I'm big enough to say I was wrong. Because some of the things that he has ran on, he is actually accomplishing. He's still in his first year. And one of the big announcements that just happened, let me go ahead and bring this up here. Remember the whole tax the rich thing that he ran on? So it's a little bit milder version than what he wanted because Kathy Hochul, you know how she is. And she still don't want to go after the corporations, but she did agree to do this. So let's go ahead and bring this in up here, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Tax Day, New York. We're taxing the rich. This is one of the things. I'm going to get to the other two.
When I ran for mayor, I said I was going to tax the rich. Well, today, we're taxing the rich. I'm thrilled to announce we've secured a pied-à-terre tax, the first in New York's history. This is an annual fee on luxury properties worth more than $5 million, whose owners do not live full-time in the city. Like for this penthouse, which hedge fund CEO Ken Griffin bought for $238 million. This pied-à-terre tax is specifically designed for the richest of the rich, those who store their wealth in New York City real estate, but who don't actually live here. But even so, they're able to reap the huge financial rewards of owning property in, dare I say, the greatest city in the world. And most of the time, these units are sitting empty, since again, they don't actually live here. This is a fundamentally unfair system that hurts working New Yorkers. Now, it's coming to an end. This tax will raise at least $500 million directly for the city. It'll help fund things like free childcare, cleaner streets, and safer neighborhoods. As mayor, I believe everyone has a role to play in contributing to our city, and some a little bit more than others. Happy Tax Day, New York.
Okay, this is the big announcement, one of the big ones that is happening. So again, like someone told me about this on the call-in show on Tuesday, so I had to look into it. Someone told me about people having two homes, and it's laughable to me because I don't know anyone that has more than one home. So I'm like, who has two homes? But these rich people that have like these second homes in New York City, so they're going to tax them more. So imagine $500 million more coming back into the city for the working class. This is what I was talking about. These people need to pay more. We're paying more. We've been paying more, right? Now, Donald Trump, just to give you an idea, Donald Trump already came out very angry about this and said it's not fair that they're doing this to the rich people. So Donald Trump is pissed off about it because his buddies are going to have to pay more money. That tells you everything that you need to know. Now, in order for this to go through, of course, Kathy Hochul, she had to approve it. You guys know how that is, right? Kathy Hochul has to approve it. I think we have to close some of the tabs here, Eric, because it's freezing on me. But I'll go ahead and show the Kathy Hochul part. So, and I have to say this too. When these governors, when they decide to go forward with the proposal that the working class really likes, remember, the idea usually does not come from them. And it's the same thing with this case too, but they love to take credit for it. This is something Roger Meadows, friend of the show, warned me about like last year. They love to take the credit. So this is Kathy Hochul agreeing to this plan here. Let me go ahead and just pull this up here.
I'm proposing a common sense surcharge on high value second homes in New York City, commonly known as the pied-à-terre surcharge. This is a targeted surcharge on second homes and investor owned apartments worth over $5 million. Homes that in many cases sit vacant for a large part of the year. We have the inventory. They're part of our skyline, but those people are not part of our city. We're talking about homes like the $105 million apartment down the street from here. That's actually never been lived in. And here's why that matters. The property value of homes like that is driven by everything New York City has to offer. Those who benefit from the city without living in a full-time capacity should contribute to the costs that it takes to run the city. Public safety, world-class parks, amenities, the roads, the subway system. This proposal simply ensures that they're contributing in a meaningful way to keeping New York City the greatest city in the world.
Look, I bet you it pained her to agree to this. I bet you it's just like, ugh. But she knows because she's running for re-election and because Zohran won the way that he did win, she knows that she needs those people on her side. She's going to need their support. So she's not going to say, no, I'm not going to do any of this at all. Now it is a little bit less than what he wanted to do. But she knew she had to agree to something to help the working class because obviously, people were going to be pissed with her. Now I want to show you something here, just to give you a little bit more detail about this. Hochul proposes tax on NYC second homes that are worth $5 million. Again, I'm like, who has a second? I don't know anybody with a second home. But it goes on to say here, let me go down to this part when it gets to the Zohran part. Here we go. Ms. Hochul has generally resisted calls led by Zohran Mandami of New York City to raise taxes on large corporations or on high earners, but a tax on multi-million-dollar second homes was more palatable to her, according to her aides. So you see, what he really wanted to do was to put those higher costs on corporations and, of course, on the higher earners. She wouldn't agree to that, but she did agree to this one, a tax on the multi-million-dollar second homes. I will say this, and then I'm gonna get to the other two things that he's getting done. I will say this. Every mayor needs to pay attention to what Zohran Mandami is doing right now. Again, don't go out there praising him. Don't make him your idol or your hero. Don't do that. But he's showing you how quickly a mayor can actually work and get things done. It's still the first year. It's just now April. It's just now April. And this is just one of the things after the free childcare. So these things can be done. And that's why this was so laughable to me during this interview here that he had with CBS, the way they look at him, because he's getting these things done and people said that he wouldn't be able to do so. Listen to this.
You know, what I find is that New Yorkers ask me less about how I describe my politics and more about whether my politics includes them. And I think what we can see is that a democratic socialist politics is one that should be judged on its delivery, like any ideology. And what we're showing in this city is we can pursue the big things like universal child care and do the pothole politics at the same time that we're showing, and not just filling in the potholes, changing the catch basins, but also repaving over 1,000 miles of roadway.
But Mr. Mayor, presidential and statewide elections are often decided in battleground regions that do not look like New York City.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. Before I was the mayor, I was an assembly member of Astoria and Long Island City. At that time, I was told that you could only be a Democratic Socialist in Northwest Queens. Then I became the mayor. Now the next question is the state. Then the next question will be the country. I think that this is a politics that can flourish anywhere because, frankly, there is only one majority in this country. That's the working class. And it's time we have a politics that puts them at the heart of what it is that we're pursuing and not as part of the appendix.
Well, I guess he told him. So it's always funny to me when people say the rest of the country does not look like New York City. No shit. It's like, no, we get it. But the idea is that the largest city in the United States is getting these things done. And that is a model that you can look at. That's a model that smaller or medium-sized cities can look at and can say, well, hell, they were able to get this done in New York. We have less people than they do. Come on, there has to be something in it for us. So the thing is, he ran on those things. He's trying to get those things done. We have to learn to, let me put this up here. We have to learn to give credit where it's due. And here's the second thing that apparently is getting done. Another thing that he ran on was those city-owned grocery stores. You know, people said that couldn't be done, as if that doesn't already exist. We really have to educate more people in this country. We really do. Guess what's happening now? So here's the second thing that apparently is getting done. Check this out. So the city-owned grocery stores, it's coming. And you know what you're going to see a difference of? I want to get to that announcement video here. The prices are going to be cheaper at the city-owned grocery stores. It looks like they are starting that in, where's the city? I thought it was here, the town. He'll say it here. But they're already announcing the first one. Listen to this.
Who is here with us. Now, we are all here at La Marqueta at the same site where 92 years ago, Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia stood. And he was battling a cold in the pouring rain to break ground on this very institution of La Marqueta. A city-owned public market opened 2 years later in 1936. It cut overhead for pushcart vendors and lowered consumer costs. LaGuardia said it was, quote, an answer to those who said the unemployed had been forgotten. The New York Times described it succinctly. City tries experiment. New York City, it is time for a grand experiment once again. Just as LaGuardia used government to respond to the challenges of the Great Depression, we will use government to respond to rising prices and unaffordable groceries. Since the pandemic, grocery prices have gone up, and they haven't come back down. Between 2013 and 2023, grocery prices increased in New York City by nearly 66%, significantly higher than the national average. During our campaign, we promised New Yorkers that we would create a network of city-owned grocery stores, one in each borough. And we are here today to celebrate the site of the Manhattan store, La Marqueta, which will be open by 2029.
So they're already starting on the city-owned grocery stores. Now, yeah, it takes time to get these things up and going, but do you see how he already hit the ground running? So this is what I'm talking about. Let's go on a little bit more here.
Now, here's how it works. The city will subsidize a core set of staples. A private operator will run the store, but they answer to the standards that the city will set. These standards include requirements that at our stores, bread will be cheaper, eggs will be cheaper, grocery shopping will no longer be an unsolvable equation, and workers will be treated with dignity. 65,000 New Yorkers live within a 10-minute walk of La Marqueta. 5,000 NYCHA residents live on either side of Park Avenue. And nearly 40% of East Harlem residents receive public assistance or SNAP benefits in the last year. And we know those are the very kinds of federal programs that are under attack in this very moment. Now, at its peak, La Marqueta served 25,000 customers per day. We hope to make a similar impact here in this very neighborhood, continuing Fiorello LaGuardia's legacy. This is what we mean by a new era. When New Yorkers are being priced out of their groceries, government will step in and deliver affordability. Now, with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to our Deputy Mayor for Economic Justice.
So this is a good thing. That was one of the big things that he ran on, was those city-owned grocery stores. So he's already getting the ground up and running with that. Now, yeah, it's going to take some time. He already gave the timeline there, but he's not sitting around and saying, oh, well, if you reelect me, I'll get that city-owned grocery store for you, which is what a lot of politicians do. What Zohran is showing you is that you can hit the ground running, get these things done your first year, and not just sit back and kick your feet up at the desk and say, well, if you reelect me, then I'll get those things done. And that's a common thing that a lot of politicians have done, regardless of his Congress, mayor, gubernatorial races. A lot of them have done that. So go get those things done. Now, we'll have to wait and see how it turns out. But the point is, he's doing what he said he was going to do. And then there's another one that I have to point out here. The wealth inequality. And we had this study done right here in Boston a couple of years ago. Our mayor, the mayor here, well, not my mayor, but the mayor in Boston, Mayor Michelle Wu, she is very well aware of this study. The new budget has been dropped for Boston, and she has actually moved funds around that are not going to fix this inequality issue, the wealth inequality issue. Like I said, some people talk a good game, but then when the button hits the road, they don't really want to, they're like, oh, well, she's taking more and more away from the working class, and she's giving more to the wealthy, especially when it comes to the Black community. Zohran, this is the third thing, because I want to show you how quickly people can move with this as well. He gets into the wealth inequality in New York, and I lived in New York too, so I know this. Listen to what he says here.
our administration inherited a report that the prior administration had refused to release, a report that had been heavily diluted over many rounds of revisions. We took the time to strengthen this report to ensure that it was actually an accurate reflection of the city that we all love and know as our home, and to actually release this report within the first 100 days. Now, in this report, what we've seen, it's a report that is both coupled with a true cost of living report, is that the inequities in this city, the racial inequities, are stark. We are talking about findings that have shown that the wealth of a median white household in this city is more than $200,000, while that of a black household is less than $20,000.
I just want to give you the numbers for Boston. In Boston, it's $8. These numbers are not exaggerated. In Boston, the study, the report that came out said that the average white family had over 275,000 net wealth, and the average black family had $8. This is where we're at now.
This is not an indictment of any one New Yorker. It is an indictment, however, of policies and politics that have persisted for far too long. Our commitment now is to act upon these findings, to do so in concert with New Yorkers' comments, as we've now opened a public comment period for the next 30 days to ensure that we have a city where we are reckoning with the long history of racism here and starting to act upon a framework that puts equity right at the center of it. Thank you.
So, again, these things should have been fixed a long time ago, but he's hitting the pavement running, trying to tackle these things. And obviously, he's not going to fix every problem in New York City, but the wealth inequality is a big one. And I thought it was really interesting what he said there when he said because of the policies that were put in place. That's how you get there, ladies and gentlemen. There was an entire village in New York City called Seneca Village. It is now known as Central Park. If you walk to a certain part of Central Park, you'll see like a little plaque there that says, this is where Seneca Village was. That entire village was a black village where black people had built schools. They built their own homes and everything. They were pushed out. And a lot of times it happened all across the country. I talked about this in my documentary, but a lot of times they were pushed out because of eminent domain. They were pushed out because of urban renewal. So Black people as a community built their own community right there in New York City called Seneca Village. They built their own schools. They had their own homes, and it was a thriving community. And the city came in and said, we want this land for green space. You got to get the fuck out. So he is correct when he says it is because of the policies that have been implemented. So I will say this. Look, do I think Zohran is perfect? No. Do I agree with everything that Zohran does or says? No. But I will say that I was wrong when I said that he's not going to be able to get these things done. I was wrong because he is getting some of this stuff done. And then another thing I want to point out, just to make a distinction here between him and AOC. Unlike AOC, he's not going to the Met Gala. Unlike AOC, Zohran Mandami to skip the Met Gala. Yeah. His source says he's not coming, and it would be foolish if he did. Can you imagine? It goes against everything he believes in. And it does. So we're gonna drop the beat for this one. Because this is what I said before. You can't be saying we're coming after the rich and then you're going to go rub elbows with the rich. You can't. So 3 things. The grocery stores, the wealth distribution from the millionaire second home people, and then the inequity, the wealth inequity issue in New York City. So we're going to drop the beat. I haven't dropped the beat in a while. I got to find the beat. Oh, here it is. Okay. All right. Drop the beat. Drop the beat. Dance with me. Dance with me. Drop the beat. In the street. All right. Many people were saying, damn, I wish my mayor was trying to do as many things as he is doing. So again, could be setting an example here for a whole new world. Other mayors can look back and see this and be like, oh shit, are people going to start asking me to do things now? All right, let's go to some of the comments here and then we'll get to the next story. All righty. Thank you for the super chat here, Jay. Get yours, child, in Kamala voice, how time changes. Yeah, I know. Thank you, MTN. Whitney Webb names names. Buy the books and educate. Yes, she does. Thank you, MTN, for this one. Searching for what Bobby Fischer was searching for. Thank you, Ira. Although Massey, MTG, and Kana push for the release of the Epstein files, I wonder why neither of them has presented legislation to end the law of return. That's a good question. Hey, you can ask Ro Khanna that. Ro Khanna actually takes questions from people. He doesn't like run away from people like some of the other politicians. Thank you, One Box. Ilham would throw those paw. I kind of feel her on the join us. I think your poll should have a bit broader in the questions. Yeah, maybe I should have. Don't forget to answer the poll, though, guys. I'm curious. I try to make the poll simple, just so I don't want to confuse people, but yeah. Thank you, MTN. Choices with transparent ranked voting and term limits. Stefan says, Sabby, you're a beacon of hope. A warm hug from very sleepy Italy. Hey, Italy's in the house. What is up? Miss Kiwi, your former quarterback, Tom Brady, has a second home in Billionaire Row on East Side, New York City, overlooking Central Park. Well, I guess Tom is going to be looking to pay up, huh? Yeah. Thank you. Where's the love? NYC taxing the rich, but Black folks are having their homes stolen in NYC boroughs. Gee, thanks, Democrats. Yeah, I looks like I'm going to have someone coming on to talk about that, about the deed theft. So, because that's a big one. Delthea, leave it to MSM to demand that we not even try to have nice things, right? But they have nice things. Thank you, MTN. Pyramid of Power by Derek Bros. Study ZIB. Shout out to Stefan for the super sticker. And thank you, Lady Studio. Mayor Brandon Scott, where are you at? Baltimore potholes. Yeah, my family's from Baltimore, so I know. I feel you. I feel you. Every time we go back to Baltimore, like potholes are serious. Serious. All right, let's get to something actually serious, though. I waited to cover this story about this influencer because I wanted to wait for a little bit more information to come out. But I will tell you, when this story was first reported, it was reported that this influencer, Ashley Janae, was found unalived in Tanzania, and that she did it to herself. This is YouTube, so you know how we got to be on here. But now there is more information that has been released. Apparently, her fiance has been brought into questioning. And now the authorities are not claiming that she unalived herself. So let's get into the story, guys. A lot of people are talking about it. This is Ashley Janae. She was an influencer. She died on vacation while she was with her fiance in Tanzania. Let's get into it.
The mystery surrounding the death of a social media influencer from New Jersey is deepening.
We just want the truth. We just want to know what happened.
Earlier this month, Ashley Robinson, better known as Ashley Janae, was on vacation with her boyfriend at a resort in Tanzania. Images posted online show her celebrating her 31st birthday and getting engaged to her boyfriend, 45-year-old Joseph McCann.
Pause. All right, I guess we got, a tiger, lion here, whatever. So this is what really gave me pause, right? The fact that she was engaged. He proposed to her on this trip. And I thought to myself, when everyone was saying, well, she unalived herself, I was like, who would do that right after they just accepted an engagement? That doesn't make any sense. Who would do that while they're on their birthday trip, while they're on vacation? So I didn't really buy into this story that she did this herself, right? Seems like a pretty happy time. Or it was. But then something happened. Let's go a little bit further here.
Joseph McCann.
She was happy. This is what she wanted.
She FaceTimed me, showed me her rings, like, Papa, I'm happy.
But days later, local authorities say hotel guests reported a romantic conflict between the couple, prompting management to move McCann to a separate room. A few hours.
That's the part that was missing from the story before. So they were engaged, but then after the engagement, apparently they had an argument that was apparently so heated that they had to be physically separated. So let that sink in for just a second, okay? There was an argument that was so heated that the hotel staff had to physically separate them. That was left out of the story when it was first reported. And I feel like, yeah, that was important for people to know.
Between the couple, prompting management to move McCann to a separate room. A few hours later, authorities say she was found unresponsive in her room by hotel staff.
I did receive a phone call from Joe. He told me that Ashley did something to herself and that she was being taken to the hospital, and that he told me that she was stable.
After receiving treatment.
Go back to mama. Let's go back to mom. Now, mom says, first of all, they had an argument. The hotel management separated them and put them into separate rooms. Next thing you know, she's dead. Mom gets a phone call from the fiance. The fiance says she did something to herself. But that's his word. It's not like hotel management found her and said, oh, no, I think, this woman did something. No, the call came from him. And that told me he was trying to get ahead of it. He was trying to get the narrative out first. It gets crazier.
After receiving treatment at 2 hospitals, Robinson was declared deceased. A hospital medical report suggesting she died by suicide, noting an unidentified mark around her neck. But
an unidentified mark around the neck.
Robinson's family not accepting that explanation. They want more information.
She's never done anything that would ever lead me to believe that she would do something to harm herself like that. She was happy.
Authorities are still questioning McCann and confiscated his passport while they wait for the medical examiner's report. McCann has not responded to a request for comment. No arrests.
So he is trapped there now, too, because he is being questioned, and rightfully so. Usually when these things happen, the first person that the authorities look at is the partner, right? Now, they said they found marks around her neck. And some people, I think they heard that and they were like, oh, well, she definitely tried to, hang herself or whatever. And I'm like, well, marks around the neck can be made that way from other types of violence as well. Like if someone tried to choke you. Let's go into more details here because this story, that's why I wanted to wait until I covered this, because I want to show you a close-up of that report that they were talking about.
That their relationship was genuine.
Ashley's mother says she never would have expected that less than a week later, her daughter would be dead. On April 8th, she says Ashley called saying she and her fiance got into an argument and were moved to separate rooms. The next day, she received another call, this time from her fiance.
He told me that Ashley did something to herself and that she was being taken to the hospital. I said, what happened when? And he told me it had been 11 hours prior.
Hours later, the luxury hotel the couple was staying at called saying Ashley passed away. According to the hospital's medical report, Ashley had an unidentified mark around her neck. They wrote...
Pause. Let's look at this. There's an unidentified mark around her neck. Don't they mean not any wound seen? Okay, not any wound seen, not pale, not jaundice. Look at this. We're looking at ample, A unknown, M unknown, P unknown, L 4 hours ago, According to the husband, he found she hanged herself on the door. According to him, nobody else found her that way. So how do you know she even was left that way? We don't know. He's the only one that said that. Now, we can look here, second survey. It says here bilateral chest expansion. Again, I think they mean not any lesion. There is a tattoo on the left side of the chest, trachea centrally located, CVS, pulse is strong and fast, cold extremities, JVP not raised. So again, look at what's highlighted. According to the husband, that's how she was found. Let's go on more here.
Quote, according to the husband, he found she hanged herself on the door with several question marks.
Sometime Jill went back to the room with security, and that's how they found her.
Ashley was also taken to a second hospital who listed her cause of death as cerebral hypoxia by strangulation and suffocation.
Uh-oh. What? They said strangulation and suffocation. That's not the same thing as hanging. Is it? No. So when this story first came out, many of us said it was probably him. It was him. And then we don't know what could have happened after that. I got to say allegedly, we don't know what could have happened after that. Here's what I believe. I believe that he did that allegedly. And then I believe he could have positioned her in such a way to make it look like she did it herself. I don't put nothing past people, man. So let's go back to what happened before. They were in such a heated altercation that the hotel manager had to put them in separate rooms. They didn't choose to go. They had to be put in separate rooms. Just something to think about. You got to be careful out here in these streets.
And suffocation.
She's never done anything that would ever lead me to believe that she would do something to harm herself.
She was not just going to be discarded and forgotten about.
She was a very pretty girl. Like it's so sad. It really is. Still very young, had her whole life ahead of her. Now, from what I understand, the fiance said he obviously older than her. It seemed like he was pretty well off when it comes to finances. So it looked like he was one of those, dudes, that midlife dude, had more money. I want to show you some of the things that she had posted because people are retweeting her posts and they're showing these things. One of them is this one, something that she posted in 2013 where she said unaliving is never the answer. So does that sound like coming from someone that would have done that to themselves? This is from Savannah Britt. She said, we need justice for my friend. So Ashley Janae was her friend. She also said, I don't believe that she would do something like this. And I'm not sure if I had the GoFundMe here or not, but the other thing that was weird, let me show you this part first. Because people were also posting these tweets of hers as well. People were saying that she was very negative towards Black men. Here's one: everyday Black men wake up and find new ways to embarrass us. Here's another one that was shared: same ends bashing Black women be the ends calling me a traitor for dating a white man. Granted, these are very old, but still, that was 2015. And this is the one that is really eerie. There's a comment for this picture, and it says, it's from Robbie RR. It says, he's gonna kill you. and then there's laughing faces there. And people are pointing to this, and people are like, what the hell? Now, this was November of 2025. This account said he's going to kill you. And now she's dead. I know. I see some people in the chat saying, what? I know. Yeah, that's the one right there. Now, the crazy part about all this, let me see if I can pull up the GoFundMe, because that's the one. Ashley Janae, go. See if it pulls it up. Oh, I didn't spell it right. Sorry. But let me just pull it up here. Okay. So her family started a GoFundMe, and the goal is $50,000. So here's the GoFundMe here. But what people also were asking, and I'm asking it too, if the fiance was, dude seemed kind of loaded, why does the family have to create a GoFundMe? Why wouldn't he help fund that? I don't know. You see what I mean? See what I'm saying? That's why I was like, oh no. And it doesn't look good for dude. It just really doesn't. So that was another thing that was brought to my attention. Eric, can we go to part 3 of Type VNC? There was also, it's been revealed now that Ashley Janae apparently also knew rapper Kevin. Let me go to this one here. Where is he at? Kevin Gates. Remember the guy that said he's got like all these jobs, that song? I got 6 jobs. I don't get tired. Remember that guy? So this video is from 2 years ago. Watch this. Watch. I got to mute this part right here because of the music. But watch what what he says.
Ashley Janae are on location for his latest music video.
How y'all doing? How y'all doing? You know, we keeping it organic. Me and my little chocolate Easter bunny. Babe, stop playing. Babe, you know I'm sensitive, babe. We about to get in a lick. This her car. She probably she just came for to pick me up.
Something like, not too crazy.
She from Philly, so you know she crazy, she toxic. She might.
Toxic.
You might be in my sleep.
Not
you
toxic.
told me if I take my hands off, you gonna pick me up.
So people are saying this is the same girl. Now the name is spelled the same. It's spelled the same, Ashley Janae, and it says IG model, and she was, IG influencer. So people are saying this is the same. And if you go to the comments of the video, watch this. If we sort to newest comments, look at this. Just one day ago, before she went to the other side and was murdered, Shorty just found dead in a hotel overseas. So I think that may be the same girl. So I don't know. Now here's the ding, ding, ding. The fiance, Joe McCann, he's now in custody. So check this out, guys. This is a big one. New details have emerged in the mysterious death of 31-year-old lifestyle influencer Ashley Robinson, who goes by the name Ashley Janae on social media. So it goes on to say here, according to an April 14th report from CBS News, Robinson's fiance, Robinson's her real name, Joe McCann, is being held by authorities in Zanzibar for questioning as the investigation behind her death continues. Police also have custody of his passports and are holding it until the autopsy results are complete. So doesn't look like he's coming back to the States anytime soon. Didn't I tell you that they were gonna? They usually look at the partner. So yeah. Now, what would need to be done? Usually at hotels, they do have cameras at hotels, and usually they can collect that footage. Now, this wasn't that long ago, so I would assume that that footage should not have been erased at this point in time, and they should be able to collect that video footage, and maybe they can see what actually happened. Maybe they can see if he walked, down that hallway, came back to her room beforehand. I don't know, but they should be able to pull the footage to hopefully see what happened to her. But it's very, it's sad, and I have to give this message. Be careful. You got to be very careful. Obviously, I do not put this on her, but it's wild that she just got engaged. And then all of a sudden things escalated to, we need to be put in separate rooms, and then she's dead. So it makes you wonder what was said. What could have happened after the engagement? It just makes you wonder. Usually you're very happy at that point. So I don't know, but we'll have to continue to monitor this story to see what else comes forward. But yeah, and there's nothing worse than being in another country and something happened to you, and it's not like you can't just go back home like that. You know what I mean? You got to go through customs. It's not just a quick, let me just jump in the car and let me go home. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Resurrect said she revealed that she just saw him as a trick. We'll have to find out, man. We'll have to find out. Okay. One more story for you, ladies and gents. This one is interesting. We're talking about a whole new world here, and it appears that Turning Point USA could be headed for a whole new world as well. Also, if these videos that I have here are any indication of what JD Vance 2028 would be like, I would say JD Vance's 2028 is dead on arrival. Dead serious. So there was an event. There was an event in Georgia. I believe this is at the University of Georgia. And Erika Kirk and JD Vance were supposed to co-host that event together. JD Vance appeared, but Erika didn't. Erika Kirk did not show up. Listen to the reason why, right? So I didn't believe this at all when Andrew Colvett said this, and now I have confirmation that this is definitely not true. But listen.
I mean, it was a really unfortunate experience for me too, just to have to watch that very difficult decision get made, which I think is the first time that we've ever had to make that decision in Turning Point history. But everything that happened with Charlie, obviously his assassination, we're still, grieving that. And you saw what happened with Savannah Hernandez, one of our TPUSA Frontlines reporters in Minneapolis. And to see the security team, tell us, we cannot guarantee your safety, we recommend that you don't do this, was a really chilling moment for all of us to kind of have to internalize and experience and realize that Erika Kirk is, her children are one parent away from being orphans. And sometimes you just have to say, listen, right now, what's most important is your safety, is your security, and your children, your family. Let your team handle this. Let us do what we can do. And so, I obviously was horrified at the reason why, but I was honored to stand in and pinch hit for Erika last night. And I was grateful for the vice president to, that we didn't have to ultimately cancel the entire event. He was willing to do it with me, and it was very gracious of him.
So,
I mean, it was a...
Here's my problem. Erika Kirk actually just had a recent event. It was with, what's that woman's name? The press secretary, Caroline Levitt. She just hosted an event with Caroline Levitt. So she was just recently at an event. But I didn't buy this. I didn't buy that there was a threat on her. Didn't buy it at all. And I'll tell you what I think really happened. And we'll show you here. But this is what she said. So she posted on Twitter, I was so looking forward to tonight's event at the University of Georgia with our president, JD Vance, Vice President JD Vance. But after all our family has been through, I take my security team's recommendation extremely seriously. Thank you for our amazing Georgia chapter for your support. God bless you all. So this was Erika Kirk saying that she wasn't going to be able to make it there because of security reasons. There was some type of threat on her. Now, let's fast forward here to Andrew Colvin again at the actual event at the University of Georgia. And he tells this to the crowd as well. And this is all going to be debunked in just a second. But listen to this.
So for those of you wondering why I don't have really flowing long blonde hair right now, so I'm going to address it right at the front. Mr. Vice President, I'm on stage here instead of our friend Erika Kirk. That's right. Because unfortunately, she has received some very serious threats in her direction, which is terrible. It's a terrible reflection on the state of reality and the state of the country. But it underscores a larger point that she has received a lot of attacks from surprising places, perhaps. Tell us what you think about that. Some of the people that have made, part-time jobs out of attacking Erika, and this is the net result.
Sure. Well, first of all, I love Erika, and I know that she did get some threats. And, about 2 hours ago, as you know, Andrew, I was a little worried that we were going to have to cancel the event because Erika was not going to come, and she was very worried about it. And I talked to the Secret Service, and obviously these guys do a very good job. And I said, you know what? Let's let Erika do what she needs to do for herself and her family. I'm sure Andrew will fill in. And let's go and make this an amazing event with the Georgia Bulldogs in Athens, Georgia. So absolutely, we're going to do this thing.
So this is the important part. JD Vance said that he did speak to the Secret Service. Okay. So let me tell you what the Secret Service just reported, because this is the part that is really all these damn lies. Like, let's just put this up here. Secret Service determines that there were no credible threats to UGA rally after Erika Kirk's cancellation. Let's dive in here. Again, you can't make this up. The U.S. Secret Service determined there were no credible threats to Tuesday's Turning Point USA rally at the University of Georgia. Even as a planned co-appearance by Erika Kirk was canceled over unspecified security concerns, a person familiar with the matter tells CBS News. You guys hear what I just said? That came directly from the Secret Service. No threats. No threats at all. So once again, it's another lie. Another lie. Candace called her out publicly on Twitter. Stop. This is exhausting. You pulled out because of bad ticket sales. For the same reason, TP Faith had to reschedule the Pastor Summit and various other events quietly. People don't believe you and don't line up for you because you struggle to tell the truth, even in the most basic facts. Where is the video of Charlie appointing you as CEO weeks before his death? The Secret Service sits above your security team. Were they actually a viable threat? The vice president would not have continued the event. Your closest threat is the shit PR team you hired that continues to operate under the delusion that they are smarter than the public. They aren't. Ouch. Yeah. This one was bad. But when you look at the room, look at this. Guys, this is bad. Look at the room.
A little bit. It doesn't bother me when he speaks on issues today. Frankly, even when I disagree.
Do you see how empty this room is? You guys see how empty the room?
How he's applying the geopolitical principles. So the most obvious example is a little bit. It doesn't bother me when he speaks on issues.
Right here. So all the people are crunched up in the middle right here in front of the stage. Now, obviously, the camera, when they showed this on YouTube, they're not going to show you all that's empty. So all you're going to see is the crowd that's in front of the stage where JD Vance is. You're not going to see all those other empty seats. And also, Sam Parker here captured this. Watch live. This is Turning Point Tour featuring Vice President JD Vance. Apparently, at that point, it was 160 people watching, I guess, on Turning Point USA. Guys, nobody was there. You get me? The reason why she didn't show up, I'll say allegedly, because you know, is because they didn't sell. They didn't sell. That's why she's not there. You can see it yourself. And it just more lies. Oh my God. But JD Vance was there and he got called out a couple of times. And I'm just going to go ahead and let you know, after what I saw, I'm telling you, I'm warning you now, JD Vance 2028 is dead on arrival, fam. Let's get into the first part here.
I like that the Pope is an advocate for peace. I think that's certainly one of his roles. On the other hand, how can you say that God is never on the side of those who wield the sword? Was God on the side of the Americans who liberated France from the Nazis? Was God on the side of the Americans who liberated Holocaust camps and liberated those innocent people from, those who had survived the Holocaust?
Notice the two examples that he used. Who is JD Vance speaking to? And I don't mean the people in the audience. Who is JD Vance actually speaking to? He's speaking to his donors. He's speaking to Benjamin Netanyahu as well. He's speaking to the donor class. Notice the examples he chose to use. Okay.
I certainly think the answer is yes, and I agree. Jesus Christ does not. I agree. Jesus Christ certainly does not support genocide. Whoever.
There's a guy in the audience that yells that out. So listen to this.
Yelled that out from the dark. He certainly does not. I think that's pretty easy. I think that's a pretty easy principle. Okay, so here's a guy. Let me just say this. This is a guy.
He said there's genocide in Gaza, right? He said you're presiding over genocide in Gaza.
No. First of all, random dude who's shouting, can I finish my point and then I'll respond to what you just shouted? Is that okay? Okay, great.
Yeah, can we give him 1 second to answer this?
So let me just finish this question on the Pope and then I want to respond to what this guy said. So, number one, when the Pope says that God is never on the side of those who wield the sword, there is more than 1,000-year tradition of just war theory. Okay? Now, we can, of course, have disagreements about whether this or that conflict is just, but I think that it's important, in the same way that it's important for the Vice President of the United States to be careful when I talk about matters of public policy, I think it's very, very important for the Pope to be careful when he talks about matters of theology. And I think that one of these issues here is that there has been, again, hey, random dude screaming, I told you I'd respond to your point. I just want to respond to this question first. But I think one of the issues here is that if you're going to opine on matters of theology, you've got to be careful. You've got to make sure it's anchored in the truth. And that's one of the things that I try to do. And it's certainly something I would expect from the clergy, whether they're Catholic or Protestant. Now, to respond to...
Pause. First of all, it seems to be more important to JD Vance that the Pope says what he feels that he should say. That seems to be a big issue. He needs to be careful about theology. You're literally sitting up there shaking hands with the devil who is killing babies and kids in the Middle East. But you're talking about what the Pope should and should not say. You're literally shaking hands with someone who is slaughtering and murdering children and women, committing genocide, wiping out whole blocks in Lebanon now. But the Pope needs to be careful about what he says about theology. Listen to his response to the gentleman that was in the audience.
This guy here, he said, I believe he said the administration supports a genocide in Gaza. And here's my response to that. When we came in, the humanitarian situation in Gaza was an absolute catastrophe. You know who's the person who got a peace agreement in Gaza? Donald J. Trump. So if you want to complain about what happened in Gaza, so if you want, sir, to complain about what happened in Gaza, why don't you complain about Joe Biden in the last administration? We're the administration that solved that problem.
Let me go ahead and debunk this lie, right? Because see, he's sneaky. He's very well coached. He keeps pointing out the humanitarian aid, that issue. Yeah, they got more humanitarian aid to come in, but they were also still killing people at the same time. So he's not going to address the killing part. So he only acknowledges we were able to get more humanitarian aid in and da-da-da. So let me go ahead and show you what just happened in Gaza, by the way. Since JD Vance is not going to tell you this, Israel bombed Gaza on 36 of the past 40 days while the war raged in Iran. This is why he doesn't say anything about the genocide. This is why he doesn't say anything about the death. That's why he doesn't say anything about the killing. That's why he pivoted to humanitarian aid. Because yes, you can point to the fact that they were letting humanitarian aid come in. Yes, but he can't deny the killing. JD Vance knows just as well as I do that they're still killing people in Gaza. They don't tell you as much. Al Jazeera still covers it. They're still talking about, they're still killing people there. So what JD Vance does, and again, like I said, he's well coached. What he does is that he just reminds you that they brought in more humanitarian aid than the Biden administration did. So now you're just focused on the fact that, oh, great, you guys gave them more food. So now you're no longer paying attention to the fact that people are still being killed. What difference does it make if you're allowing more food and more humanitarian aid to come in, but you're still killing those people? So we brought in the food, we brought in the medicine, but you might die. This is why you got to look up these things on your own. This is why it gets crazier. More here a little bit about Iran.
He said, if you guys commit to not having a nuclear weapon, we are going to make Iran thrive. We're going to make it economically prosperous, and we're going to invite the Iranian people into the world economy in a way they haven't been in my entire life. And that's the kind of Trumpian grand bargain that the president has put on the table. Man, we're going to keep on negotiating and try to make it happen because it would be great for the world. It'd be great for our country. It'd be great for everybody.
Here's the thing, guys, that JD Vance don't want to tell you, okay? Now, we all know, because the cat's out the bag, we all now know that JD Vance is reporting to Benjamin Netanyahu. He's just a clone of Peter Thiel. He's reporting to Benjamin Netanyahu. We know now. So JD Vance and Donald Trump aren't going to do anything that Israel doesn't let them do when it comes to Iran. You really believe that if Iran says, okay, we'll give away all our enrichment, all our materials, you really believe that Israel won't try to bomb them again? Because I don't. There's another one here from this event. This is bad, man. The other one here, when he talks about young people and how young people feel about the Middle East.
I recognize that a lot of young voters don't love the policy that we have in the Middle East. Okay, I understand that. I also know that we've secured the border. We've lowered housing prices now for 8 months in a row, and there's going to be more to come beyond that. We've made America energy dominant, which has lowered electricity costs and things like that.
How many of you have a lower electricity bill? Let me know in the chat if your electricity bill is lower all of a sudden.
Made it so that we have the lowest murder rate in 127 years. I'm not saying you have to agree with me on every issue. I'm not saying you have to agree with me on every issue. What I'm saying is don't get disengaged because you disagree with the administration on one topic. Get more involved.
So, do you see what JD Vance is doing? All right, let's hear about what he says that they did again, what he claims that they did.
I recognize that a lot of young voters don't love the policy that we have in the Middle East. Okay, I understand that. I also know that we've secured the border. We've lowered housing prices now for 8 months in a row, and there's going to be more to come beyond that. We've made America energy dominant, which is...
Housing prices are not lower where I live. They're definitely not lower in this state. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. The housing prices have increased. They've continued to increase. They're not lower. What is he talking about? He's just throwing things out there.
Lowered electricity costs and things like that. We've made it so that we have the lowest murder rate in 127 years. I'm not saying you have to agree with me on every issue.
I'm not even sure that lowest murder rate thing is correct either.
I'm not saying you have to agree with me on every issue. What I'm saying is don't get disengaged because you disagree with the administration on one topic. Get more involved. Make your voice heard even more. That's how we ultimately take the country back. It's not by you, if you get 5 things you want and 1 thing you don't want. I see way too many people, especially in sort of the online conservative, Twitter sphere, who say, there's no point. No. I recognize.
So we are living in a time when Epstein files have been exposed both sides of the aisle. JD Vance doesn't want to acknowledge that genocide is a red line for many people. And you don't get the country back by being under the thumb of Israel. You don't get the country, you don't fix the country by continuing to give Israel everything that it wants, by increasing the defense budget. Wages aren't increasing. Housing costs have actually increased. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Just throwing things out there. That's why that room is half empty. Half empty. And then if we go on, it's really wild when you look at it, folks. I think that Mel really hit the nail on the head. I just realized why Erika stood Vance up. The donors. Duh. Why didn't I realize that yesterday? Erika promised at AmFest that TPUSA Action was going to pump Vance in 2028. That was Charlie's position too. But the Zionists have clearly been very unhappy with Vance despite him being a pathetic dog and jumping on every command, and they want someone else. So TPUSA sets up this event with Vance. They do zero promotion for it. Then Erika bails on Vance at the very last minute and leaves him looking like a fool in a nearly empty stadium. Donald Trump's approval rating has also taken down JD Vance's approval rating. It's bad. Because like I said, and I told you guys, based on what JD Vance 2028 is dead on arrival. So his idea is not to be crass and basically call Palestinians names or anything like that. His idea is to just not even say the word genocide, not talk about the killing at all. And just focus on, well, we got in humanitarian aid. They have a problem. They have a big problem. Erika knew this was going to be a flop because of the ticket sales. She knew it was going to be a disaster. And she said, I'm not dealing with that. And she stayed her ass home. So there you go. Now, we are possibly looking at a whole new world. A world where even conservatives, along with leftists, turn away from this idea of Israel being the be all and everything, and focusing on what we need to prioritize here at home, because we do need to prioritize things here at home. We could be looking at a whole new world. Question is, are people willing to shake hands with the other side to get these things accomplished? Because as long as JD Vance, and he also said it during this event, you guys need to be focused on the radical left. Imagine being more upset and angry with the so-called radical left than people who are actually preventing you from having a quality of life. People who are committing a genocide. People who don't want you to own anything. Imagine that. But let's see that poll. What did you guys think here? Let's see. Do you think JD Vance would win in 2028? 5% said hell yes. 68% said hell no. 18% said I'm not sure. And 9% said I don't think he will run. Interesting. Interesting. All right. All right, guys. Eric is going to come in and he's going to wrap this bad boy up. He's also going to read the rest of the super chats here. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me tonight. I'll be back live.
Somebody in chat just asked, can I change my vote?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know.
The poll. No, you can't change your vote. We got rules. No, it's just the way
but
the
anyway,
tech works.
on Sunday, Colonel Larry Wilkerson will be back with us for the Sunday live stream. And that's it for me tonight, guys.
All right. Got a Larry run going on.
All righty.
Good guess.
Have a good night. Keep up the fight.
All right. We're going to let Sabrina move on with her with her Thursday. Yeah, I'm just seeing more requests in the chat to change their vote, but no, you can't change your votes on the poll, but no, it's all good. Yeah, the whole thing with JD is interesting. There's there's this idea, is he viable? Is he going to run? Yeah, I'm not sure. In some ways he seems like a really good fit for what they're, the billionaires, and for kind of a Republican candidate. He knows his talking points. He kind of can reel them off, and he looks good, sounds okay and whatnot. But then at other times he seems really lame, and you really wonder, does this guy have a shot? But we'll see. The other thing you get into is just 2028 is so far away at this point. Like, we're talking about like a different world politically. The one thing I did want to mention, and just connect to, is with the Mamdani story and Ro Khanna and MTG. I think yes, it's good to see these things happening. I think they're reacting to public pressure that people are really unhappy with what's been going on, with genocide, war, the economy, the whole bit. And there's then the politics has to respond to that in a fashion. I would say that the challenge of what I would say that those of us who are really independent and want real change, the challenge is not to get reeled in back into the duopoly. That's the problem, kind of the risk in all this. So if it's whether it's Mamdani or Ro Khanna or Thomas Massie or MTG, I think we should be saying, yes, that's great. So when are you leaving the Uniparty is what we should always be saying to them. Why are you still a member of a thoroughly corrupt party, whether that's the Democratic Party or the Republican Party? We should be asking them, how can you be a member of a party whose leadership is thoroughly corrupt and owned by the billionaires? And when we start seeing some of them leave the corrupt duopoly and really start forming something new, whether it's a party or even, it wouldn't even have to be a party, but just a coalition. When we start seeing them do that, when we start seeing them call out party leadership, when we start seeing them call out the billionaires in real ways, when we start seeing them coalesce over laws and things that look like the 11 demands, right? About those fixes to the big money in politics. When we start seeing that, we will really be able to start taking them seriously. I think people are ready. And there's the theme of a whole new world of the show tonight, and I think people are ready for that, but they even have trouble imagining a world with a government that's not totally corrupt and run by the billionaires. Step one, so what I would propose then, as far as going through, how do we get there? What are we proposing, right? Well, if you go to, and I'm going to bring up the old 11 Demands site just briefly here. There it is that I would propose the concept of MCDS as the way to look at things and how to fix things. Money, corruption, demand, solutions, right? And what we want and need are politicians that are sounding like this, that are saying things like this, right? The money, big money runs everything in Washington. The politicians act that way because they are paid to be that way. They should be calling out the corruption, right? It must be called out relentlessly. But it's also very important, if you're going this far, is having clear demands. I know it sounds like an obvious thing. It sounds like it's just, of course, when we're talking about these things, we're having demands, but I'm just kind of surprised by even, people I like, people, and that I see on Twitter that I agree with, that don't really roll it to the next step, right? What is the demand? And so if you look at that old 11 demands list, right, is what a proposed set of demands look like. And those of you who have seen me on here before have heard me, talk about those. And when you are putting it in the verbiage of demands, then you start seeing solutions. It's about fixing the big money. And the demands need to be dialed up to 11. That's part of the reason why it's 11 demands, is dial it up to 11. So it's like, don't just ask for Medicare for all. I mean, they're arguing about Medicare for all. It's like Medicare for all is a compromise. We should be demanding full and complete health care for all. No excuses. A minimum, don't just ask for a minimum wage, demand a minimum standard of living for everyone. If you're a human being, you deserve a minimum standard of living, period. And of course, end the wars, demand peace. So the proposal through 11 demands is a mass movement based on clear demands with that strong focus on corruption. Either we figure out a way to get something like this rolling and get it something that starts to spread into thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people. Either that happens in some fashion, or we're not going to see that better world. So I think we all have a role to play in that. We can all be doing it through MCDS, 11 demands. If there are other things that are similar or have the same ends outside the duopoly, but it needs to be calling out the corruption, and it needs to have clear demands, and let's all work on it, is what 11 demands is all about. All right. Meanwhile, we have chats in the super chats in the queue. We got a few built up here from maybe a little bit earlier, from the earlier stories. Let's see what we got in here. Thanks for this super chat from Quack Industries Inc., who says, I am hooked and love when you drop the beat. Right. Sabby appreciates that. And thanks for the super chat very much, Ray. He says, Zohran has a very good staff team. I hear you. I just want him to get out of that corrupt party and let's take it from there. It's kind of like, It's kind of like I'm going to suspect that Mandami is the next the next AOC. Mandami is the next Obama until he leaves the corrupt duopoly. I'll put it that way. And thanks for the super chat, Mountain Star Studio, who says, just saying, Natalie Wood and Robert Maxwell vibing. I think talking about the story with the influencer and the boyfriend. Yeah, I mean, you hate to say it because it's not always the boyfriend or the spouse, but it's kind of always the boyfriend or the spouse. Unfortunately, that's what you got to look at first. Thanks for being a member for 29 months. Shout out to $1, one of one, who says she probably second thought the marriage he didn't like. Later he would be overbearing. Yeah, it sure didn't last very long there. And sometimes these dudes, man, I mean, he certainly has the prototype, right? A rich older white dude who has to have his way. And thanks for the super chat. Where's the love? Who says, dude may walk. DV laws are different overseas. Yeah, I mean, that's could be a different world, different country. Yeah, thanks for this one, Snowy 7148. I would want hotel staff to report every single word they heard during the intervention. Yeah, I mean, hopefully, they're being interviewed and looked at. Sabrina mentioned cameras. I mean, what you get in a lot of hotels are cameras in the hallways. You'll have cameras in the ceiling or up in the corner, and if they're looking at that footage, it could be very telling. All right, I think these get into our next story. Thanks for the super chat. Shockwave Truth. God to Erika is Donald Jesus Trump, DJT. Right. And thanks also for this one. He says, God to Erika is Donald Jesus Trump. The gig is up. Sabrina, the grift is over. Gun does not fit. She quits. JD questioned Pope about theology. Yeah, I was certainly struck about that part. It's like to just kind of unapologetically be up there lecturing the Pope on theology is kind of a bit much, dude. Thanks for the super chat, Stefan, who says, no one has ever been so disrespectful to the Pope, not even Ali Anka, the guy who shot Pope, the earlier Pope, Wojtyla. Yeah, I hear you. And thanks for the super chat. Karina Lies, who says, free Palestine, free Congo, free Sudan, free Lebanon, free Sudan, free Cuba, free Syria, free Lebanon, free Iran, free Tigray, free us all. Yeah, there's a lot of freedom that needs to be happening. And the other thing I should always mention is, free us from the billionaire control of this world, the billionaire influence. I would propose, I don't know, maybe insist that we always have to connect these issues to the billionaires. They're the ones with the wealth and power. They're the ones who control and corrupt our government. The buck stops with them. The fixes are about decorrupting the government and cutting those puppet strings. And then when you do that, if we have a government that works more for the 99% and less for the billionaires, the top 0.1%, then you have a government that will really start considering things like wealth taxes and real programs for the 0.1%, real regulations, reining in the bankers, reining in the big corporations, breaking up big corporations, all these things. And you look at 11 demands, there's the whole program. If we can decorrupt our government, even if we can start decorrupting our government, if we can start making that be a demand, making that be the new thing that has to start happening, good things will start happening. That's the road to the better world. If we don't decorrupt our government, then it's just the same old, what keeps happening. I really do think it is that stark, and that's the challenge before us. That's why I always say, You need to have clear demands. You need to be connecting it to the corruption. And thanks for this super chat very much, Angela Barrett Brown. He says, thank you for keeping us updated on the domestic and global issues. Well, thank you, Angela, for the super chat and the kind words. And we had another one here from Delthea, and shout out to Delthea for being a member for 56 months, who says, J.D. Vance, the vice president, is a 2019 convert to Catholicism, but he knows more about theology than the Pope. Yeah, I know, right, Delthea? We miss you out on the call-in Zoom Hangouts, Delthea. Come back and hang out with us. And we got this super chat. That might be the last in our queue from Helpful Harm, who says, look up GPT CEO abuse case from yesterday. Gross. All right, we'll check. Talking about Sam Altman. Yeah, I'll have to make a note of that and him, keep an eye on him. All right. So I think that's going to about do us for tonight. Sabrina said we got interview with Larry Wilkerson coming up, and lots of interviews and good stuff. Sometimes I look at the chat, but it's usually more distracting than we can look at it. But that's good. That's all right. That's our super chats. That's our show. We'll be back at it on, if it's Thursday, we'll be back on Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. We'll have more good stuff with that for you then. Until then, I'm going to wrap it up here for tonight. I want to thank everyone for watching and for your good chats and super chats. And until next time, have a good night. Keep up that fight, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.